there's a fine line between criticizing a team and just straight up abuse. And a lot of what I was seeing in the comments was on the wrong side of that line.
You are of rational mind in everything that you've just said there, Baxty. And I was with you until I went back and looked at the tweet, and then I've just gone scorched earth, heel Cameron once again. How dare you, Mercedes of Brackley and Brixworth, aim this at the fans who have bought your merch, who spend thousands of pounds that they can't afford, following you all around the world at various different Grand Prix. How very dare you? Sir Hanlon's Razor states that you should never chalk up to maliciousness what you can attribute to stupidity. And I think that summarises everything that we're talking about with Mercedes. Agree or disagree, Shez? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown Podcast. With me as always, my brethren, my brothers, my friends, the one they call the A-side, Chesino, and Sir Baxty. How are we doing, chaps?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate.
Good,
It doesn't matter how you are doing, because we need to talk about some F1. Should we talk about Mercedes and get it out of the way first and foremost, chaps? Because I am getting quite cheesed off. My memory doesn't extend long enough to remember all of the infractions that they've done against me. Although at last Grand Prix, the chat from Lewis Hamilton Evangelist is that they are sabotaging their driver. Now, Baxty, to that, you react how, sir?
Do you have a beat machine? Because you might need it. No, they're talking crap. Like basically, there's two ways of looking at it, because after the race, Lewis basically, and Bono said this on the radio as well, that Lewis got damage on the second standing start when Leclerc went past him, and it affected his race, and he was understeering massively, and that's why he said, "Let George past." And then about a day later, people decided, yeah, let's watch the Channel 4 highlights. And the press picked up on it. And Toto said, oh, well, we were also experimenting on Lewis's car, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because Lewis's qualifying pace was excellent. Yeah, and he said he was really happy and was basically suggesting that they weren't doing any experiments. So I don't think there's any sabotage going on because, why would they sabotage Lewis? It just makes no sense to me, It's just they're trying things and they're not necessarily working because they're trying to learn on the go because they don't feel there's much competition behind them. There seems to be a clear divide between 1 to 5 in the team pecking order and 6 to 10. And that's why they felt that they could take the call on the strategy, which, as we know, was absolutely crap. But there are still a lot of positives there for Mercedes as well. 1 second quicker in qualifying trim. The pace in the second and third stints were good in comparison to the rivals, which are at the moment McLaren and Aston Martin. It's just the initial decision to go with the one-stop strategy kind of compromised Lewis more than George because Lewis was behind. It's just one of those races where once one thing goes wrong, about 10 other things go wrong, and there's nothing really you can do to stop that from happening. So no sabotage at all. Difficult race. And people just need to get over themselves.
This is true and has never been more true than today in the F1 space. Shez, are you familiar with Hanlon's Razor? So Hanlon's Razor states that you should never chalk up to maliciousness what you can attribute to stupidity. And I think that summarises everything that we're talking about with Mercedes as at April of 24. Agree or disagree, Shez?
Middle, like they have made some pretty interesting decisions, but as we've said before, I think those decisions stem back to what's been going on over the winter and their and the way they've gone about creating their aero map for this car and their mechanical platform now for this car as well, as if you can believe what's been coming out of Brackley. They're if they still don't understand the car, and we're in an era where you can't test the car on track in the way that you could back in the early noughties, then I guess it makes logical sense that the only way to test your car when you've got a poor correlation with the wind tunnel is to do tests at the track. it just seemed, as Baxi said, a little bit of a weird thing for Toto to say that when one, you definitely had a good reason for why Lewis might have had a deficit in pace in the first stint, because his second and third stint were actually quicker than Russell's anyway. But also, when your lead driver is saying that actually the car felt much more comfortable this time, and I didn't need to do experiments to directly contradict that sort of after the race, just seemed a bit odd. But I have to say that one, I agree. I do chalk up to stupidity more than anything else. I just don't understand why Toto felt the need to say that.
Shez, I don't see why Toto sees the need to say any of the things that he's currently saying at the moment. No, genuinely, it sounds like I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but I'm a bit through with it all. From the PR thing that they put out, talking about, which we're going to talk about backstage, talking about if you didn't love me at my worst, or if you loved me at my worst, all this nonsense. I'm like, what are they talking about? From Toto saying that, listen, Max Verstappen, I can see the way he's managing the tyres. Nobody's going to catch him, even though there's still 20 races left. From them saying that we understand more about the car in Japan and there's positives to take about. I'm just a bit through with it at the moment, chaps. I'm like, you know what? Like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Right? Like, I'm just a bit like, mate, I can't be bothered with it. Baxley, talk to me about this tweet, bruv, because I know you've got opinions.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Why?
So for context, this is the meme tweet where they said, if you can't love me at my worst, which is a picture of the W15, then you don't deserve me at my best, which is a picture of the W11. And look, Mercedes won the engagement game here because the storm that erupted after they tweeted this was massive. You had Lewis Hamilton fans going, just piling in on the team, calling them a disgrace. We can't wait to leave, bloody blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting there going, hang on, you're the same fan base that destroyed Mercedes for, hang on, I'm just going to check my notes here. Telling the goddamn truth about something, they said the cars have switched, and then somebody said, I don't like your decisions, and then somebody said, oh, well, Mercedes responded, Lewis suggested it, because that's exactly what happened. Lewis goes, please, I think we should do a car swap. They're not going to say no. They're not going to say, no, Lewis, we want you to hold up your teammate, please. Are they? Come on, think about it. And it's just so, and they were getting abused, there's a fine line between criticizing a team and just straight up abuse. And a lot of what I was seeing in the comments was on the wrong side of that line. Just going like, you're disrespecting Lewis, you're clueless, you're idiots. And it's just like, why feel the need to do that? Like, just try and find a more positive outlet to air your criticism. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to feel, but we can all feel angry. I mean, I was pissed off waking up at 6 a.m. to watch my team screw up the strategy. I mean, it was, I'm not happy about it, but why don't we ask questions about that? Why did you go down that strategy? It's just. So I felt this was just a very humorous clapback from the Mercedes admin team going, we see what you're saying and we can't respond to you and call you all idiots because that would be really stupid, whereas I can say that because I'm not affiliated with the team, even though I got accused of it during a humorous discussion with a tweeter. I thought it was just a bit of fun, and the amount of engagement they got from it was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, Baxley, this is techie, bruv. This is techie as I'm about to lose my voice again. Shez, talk to me, bruv, before I go mad out here, because I'm not sure where I stand on this still.
I mean, look, I thought it was a neat tweet. Like, it was nice and to the point, and it felt like one that they'd been sort of saving in the bank for a little while, because this isn't the first time that everyone's just gone off at Mercedes and just launched one. But the other side to this is that it clearly demonstrates what people's priorities are in Formula One, and it's never an allegiance to a team. unless it's Ferrari. Um, it's always to a driver, and Merca, they kind of not known this, but they're having to realize that the only reason they have the fandom base that they do at the moment is because Lewis Hamilton drives for them. But that's probably the same for a number of teams down the grid. Like Aston Martin only sell gear because Fernando Alonso drives for their team, and if he's not there, uh, you're not going to have the engagement that you do before. And their problem is going to be that next year they don't have that massive asset. They're going to lose all of these, all of the fans and commenters that are engaging with them at the moment. Are they going to become completely irrelevant? Do they need to keep doing stuff like this to drive engagement, as Baxley says? I don't know, but it seemed like a response to sort of like weeks and weeks and weeks of years, maybe of from the last 2 years of people telling them that you're screwing up our driver. Well, he's not your driver; he's their driver, and they have to work with him, and that's kind of how that plays out, and it's probably what fed into why that tweet came out.
Preach. Yes. Thank God. Heaven forfend that a team have a sense of humour.
Go on then, Baxty. Man, get it out your system, bro. Because
No,
even as I'm listening to go on, Baxty.
It's just like, yeah, first of all, yes, he's a Mercedes driver. He doesn't belong. Well, I mean, Lewis loves his fans, and that's great, and he has a great relationship with his fans, but he is a Mercedes driver. Who's going to be feeling it more? The fans or the team that
Exactly.
essentially have failed to deliver on their promise to get him the eighth world championship that they feel that they owe him, because they're not winning a championship this year. So you don't need to then dogpile on the team and call them every name under the sun, because they're going to be feeling it more than anyone. That they haven't done a good enough job for their driver. And Lewis will be feeling it as well. It's just, why do we feel the need to get so tribal over things? I mean, it's the same with any sport. I'm not about to say this is a problem unique to Formula One. Hell, I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan. It comes with the territory. But it's just sometimes you just got to take that step back and just have a bit of perspective and go, look, this is sport. Yes, Mercedes have made all these improvements, but we're worse off than we were. That's because other teams have made better improvements than us. That's the cyclical nature of sport. That's how it works. You're not going to be the best all the time. Dynasties crumble. And actually, part of the joy of supporting a team or supporting a driver is the journey to get back, or the journey to get there in the first place. Like, I think a lot of Max Verstappen fans will celebrate 2021 because of the journey that Max took from the young kid coming in, working his way up from Red Bull, going into a Red Bull team that were nowhere near the dominant force that they are now, and taking it to the all-conquering Mercedes team, the team that destroyed everybody, and that's why they would have felt the pleasure of that victory. And it was the same watching Lewis go at it with Nico, this title battle, 3-year fight that they had, and okay, Lewis came out on top twice, and 2014 was the sweetest one because it went down to the final race, and you go on these journeys, and the success is great, but you also look back on that journey as well. And I think a lot of fans have come on board when all they've known is Lewis winning. That's all they've known. And it's what people need to realize is that's what happened is 8 years of domination. That's a freak. That's never happened. That's unprecedented. And it's like, okay, that's great. I mean, it's great for Lewis that he's been able to do that because he won 6 championships. But we're now in the other part of the journey where we're on the come down, and we now need to fight back. Think about how much that, as a Mercedes fan, that George Russell win meant so much to me, because I was just like, yes, we can still do this. And then the Lewis and George poles in Hungary as well, back to back 22-23 was like unbelievable. Just such elation. It was, that those moments, they become more special in a way. So yeah, we can, you see people saying Mercedes have overpromised. I mean, what have they really promised? Oh, we're going to try and get back to the front. Well, everything resets to zero, and you start again, and you have to earn everything you get. And Mercedes aren't earning what they usually do.
But Baxter, do you not think that there's a little bit of when you follow a driver, right? There's this sort of dichotomy at the center of F1, right? Is Formula One about drive? Is it about drivers and the team just make a car for that driver, or is it about teams and the driver is driving the car that the team has made? Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah,
There's a subtle difference in emphasis, right?
that's the thing.
And I agree that for most people, for me too, like it's about drivers. Like I want to see the gladiators on track, and it means that when your driver's doing well, even though you hear all the stuff in the background about it's a team sport and the cars are big differentiators, people don't see that. They know it in the background. They know it as a subliminal thing, but in the heat of it, it's my driver is better than your driver, and it doesn't matter what car they're in. They're just better, right? And the team becomes like a faceless entity in the background of all of this, just like a blank canvas for the driver to do what they're doing on track. So it means that when what's happening right now to Lewis happens, when the performance drops off, and it's multifactorial, like you can't say that it's just because the car has dropped off, right? Like Lewis has to play a part in that as well. There is a two-way street here. It becomes very easy to just go, it's not my driver's fault, right? Because my driver is completely blameless. It has to be something else. The easiest thing to target is the team. You're messing this up, and that's how this comes across.
Yeah, absolutely. It's needing somebody to blame that isn't the driver. Well, I mean, you can blame the driver for sticking with the team. I mean, look, as a Lewis fan, how many times have we as Lewis fans looked at Fernando and gone, "You made all the wrong choices, ha ha, hardy, 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 ha." Well, Fernando wouldn't have known that he made the wrong choices, would he? But he took those risks to go to Ferrari, to McLaren, to Aston Martin, to Alpine. How many of those have paid off? Like one. Ferrari was okay, but one, realistically, Aston Martin has been a good choice to make. Whereas Lewis always seems to nail his career moves. He's made one of them so far, and the other one is looking rosy, but a lot can change between now and the start of next season. And it's that desire that you have to blame somebody. Now, I'm not saying Mercedes aren't devoid from blame here. They've messed up because and that's collective on the team. But squarely blaming them is ridiculous. Lewis is just a part of that team. He's a massive cog in that machine, but he's still just a part of that team. And Mercedes will continue to exist without Lewis Hamilton, way beyond his career, even beyond the end of this year. They will exist beyond his career. It doesn't matter. They will have two drivers in the car. They will sign a driver, be it Max Verstappen, Kimi Antonelli, whoever.
Baxty, this is what you hope, bruv. But I think there is pre and post Lewis Hamilton as far as Mercedes eras are concerned. And I agree with 95% of what you said, Baxter. But you know what makes me lose my SH1Ts when I look at the tweet again and I'm like, fudge all that stuff. It's very... You are of rational mind in everything that you've just said there, Baxty. And I was with you until I went back and looked at the tweet, and then I've just gone scorched earth, heel Cameron once again. How dare you, Mercedes of Brackley and Brixworth, aim this at the fans who have bought your merch, who spend thousands of pounds that they can't afford, following you all around the world at various different Grand Prix. How very dare you leverage a tweet, in jest or whatever, against your own fans? Surely now, Baxty and Shez, surely now more than ever is the time when you want the fans to support you, because you're going to need each and every single one of those fans as we roll forward into next year. Because in 2025, you're going to have half of the fans, in fact, probably you're going to have less than half of the fans that you have now. Like, lots of those people are going to follow Lewis Hamilton straight to Scuderia Ferrari. So I'm just thinking the time and place with all that's going on, you're trying to fix the car. Of course, you can't fix it. You're having all these strategic errors still. It's been 3 years worth, nearly as near as makes no difference. And now you do this. Now's the time when you choose to clap back against the fans, toxic or non-toxic. I don't care. Baxter, if I'm honest with you, I just think it's, as I'm looking, listen, bruv, as you're talking, I'm nodding along to everything that you said. And literally, I've turned into the Incredible Hulk on the back of my having looked at the bloody tweet again. I'm just thinking, what are you? There's no, when you pitch that tweet out there as well, it's a scattergun approach, isn't it, Baxter? I hear what you're saying, that they're trying to delineate between the toxic and the non-toxic. I have toxicity in me from time to time, but for the most part, I want to say that I can be of rational mind. I flip flop. When I see that tweet, I feel like they're on the phone, chaps speaking directly to me. Like, what? Are you having a laugh? Frustrated out here, desperately trying to leverage some sort of forgiveness on the back of all the faux pas and strategic errors, and you can't change tyres, and Lewis Hamilton hasn't been extended the ambassadorial role, nor could you give him a multi-year deal. All of these things you're trying to table to Max Verstappen, all these things have gone on, and in my heart I've tried to leverage each and every single sinew of forgiveness that I have in me, yet and still I'm on board, discreetly somewhat supporting Lewis via Mercedes. And then that's the repayment that you want to give me for purchasing a 50. Behave. Honestly, Baxter, I don't think it's good enough for, not now. They should. I don't think they should be doing that, man.
Therein lies the genius, though, because you've just gone back and looked at it and gone like, that was the point of it, to create that guttural, visceral reaction of, it's. This tweet was definitely aimed at a certain faction of the fan base, a majority of the fan base, but a large section of the fan base. Like, this was Mercedes' way of like, just please do better. Like, seriously, because they don't feel that they can just come out and say, why are you giving us abuse? Like,
but Baxter, it's not there, and this is where it gets bloody techie, chaps, because they ultimately, Mercedes, first and foremost, they don't have a right to tweet that out, because nobody loved the W11 or whatever. Everybody's on this bus because Lewis Hamilton drives for that car. Let's have it right, chaps. It's never been about exactly what Shez says. It's never been about. Nobody has a dying love for any of those iterations of Mercedes car. It has always, for the most part, been about brand, Lewis Hamilton, and the symbiosis with Mercedes. But once that fella leaves, let's see what happens. Let's see what colour Silverstone fans look like next year. It won't be luminous green again. I guarantee it will be red. So when they tweet that out, I'm like, well, you've got it. I feel like you've got it wrong, chaps. You're over egging your self-aggrandizement cake here. It's never been about you. I know, Baxter, you're a Mercedes fan, but for like 75% of the fans that are cheering on Mercedes, they are on the Lewis Hamilton bus, vicariously Mercedes through him. So I almost feel like they're I feel like they've misread the room ever so slightly in trying to execute a tongue-in-cheek tweet. It's never been about W11 or W12. It's always been about Lewis for most people. But I digress. Shez, go on. You're on mute, I think.
I was just saying, I thought that tweet was the first time the admins felt really human, though. Like, it just felt a point where,
But Shez,
go on.
But they're not human. They're an entity, right? Forget, like, I know there is ultimately a person on the end of the phone typing that, but they represent $1 billion entity. This is like Daimler AG, right? So for them, again, as soon as they put that tweet out and it's aimed to whatever faction of the fans, I'm feeling like they're punching down. You will be okay, Mercedes. You can afford to take a couple of drives and hits toxic or non-toxic, because ultimately you're $1 billion entity, a massive global brand. So what you can't afford to do, or what I don't think you should be doing at this point now more than ever, is punching down at the fan base who support you through Lewis Hamilton with toxicity, non-toxicity, whatever. you're going to be okay, Mercedes. You're caking. You're a listed entity, right? Proper, like a mega cap. So you will be okay. What you don't need to do then against that backdrop is put out a tweet taking aim at some of your fan base, surely, Shez.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, ultimately, I think this comes down to the fact that they know that they're starting to realise that their popularity is just because of Lewis Hamilton, and perhaps they just don't. At this point, they know those fans are leaving anyway. So, all right, go. And I know that's a very immature way of looking at it. I know that it's not the way that a multinational billion-dollar company, and I'm not even just talking about Mercedes. I'm talking about the team is worth over $1 billion now, right? I agree that that's not in keeping, but that's what tells me that there is a human at the end of this, that somebody felt that they put out a good explanation for why a particular thing happened. They got a huge amount of abuse about it, didn't think it was fair, and put this tweet out. It was a neat tweet that told you exactly where they stood and how they felt. And the look, I don't think I'm quite as vested in the Mercedes game as maybe Baxiers and maybe even you are, Cameron. Like I just want, like, I want my driver to do well, and if that's in America, it's in America. If it's in a Ferrari, it's in a Ferrari. It doesn't really matter to me, right? I just want him to do well. That's why to me this kind of tweet happens. It happens in the background, and the fans for whom it feels personal, maybe we should understand that too. Like Cameron, you bought a fluorescent yellow Mercedes t-shirt, right? You didn't buy it because it's a Merc t-shirt. You bought it because Lewis drives for Mercedes.
Yeah, but Shez, it's still vein, but that revenue doesn't go into Lewis Hamilton. That goes into Mercedes.
I'm sure it pays for Lewis's salary at some point as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all under the same umbrella. But ultimately, the cap, wherever it is, has the bloody silver arrows on it, which makes me feel like a mug, Shez. Because now you're turning around and like, I've given you my hard-earned cash, and now you're going to tell me that if I can't love you at your worst, then I can't behave.
In less than a year's time, right? Whether Mercedes win a championship with Lewis this season or not, you're going to change your t-shirt again and buy a red one. Like,
so what's that got to do with them then, Shez?
Whether that tweet went out or not, you're still going to do.
Yeah, all right then, Shez. So are you saying then, Shez, that gives them the right then to poke fun at me, notwithstanding the fact that I've taken food out of my son's mouth to go and buy their merchandise? Are they having a laugh?
That's if you decide that they're aiming it at you, which I don't think they are. I don't think that is a direct.
But how do you delineate, Shez? It didn't have my name on it, but it said broadly it was you plural, right? If you don't love me at my worst, then you didn't deserve me at my best. Well, there was no brackets, non-toxic fans only. I read that and felt like it was aimed at me. Similar Rainmaker, there were non-toxic fans, more non-toxic than I, who would have looked at that tweet and felt like they were talking to them. And that's my problem. You can't just do...
Yeah, fair enough.
Look, the whole, if we're going to get techie for a second, the whole equality and diversity thing that Lewis Hamilton has been pushing for the longest time has at its core, right, that you need to treat people on their own merit. You can't just clump up a massive fan base and tweet out, if you don't love me at my worst, then you didn't deserve to love me at my... Behave yourself. You've lost it. Now, I think that was a massive faux pas. The more that I think about it and the more that I dwell on it and whirl it round in my very noddy F1 brain, I think it's really bad, chaps. As a multi-billion-dollar entity in Mercedes, that they did that. Like, where was what engagement, Baxty? That's the upside for them, mate.
Do you not think this though speaks to the wider issue that Formula One has right now, that the on-track product is so boring that we're spending 20 minutes talking about a tweet?
Oh, 100%. No, 100%, bro. 100%. No, you're on the money, Baxty. But again, I'm not even... This isn't me doing a bit. Like literally,
No, I
as
know,
you
I
guys
know, I know, I
as
know.
you guys were talking, like I thought, let me just go back and read because I remember in the moment. I'll tell you guys in real time. I remember in the moment seeing the tweet, and I wanted to go live like instantly and react in real time. Luckily for Mercedes, my vocal cords haven't been fantastic over the past couple of weeks. Had they been, there would have been a piece of viral footage on YouTube right now that they could have reacted to properly. I would have given them a reason to react like that and stop tweeting out some things like that because I would have gone ham, no pun intended. But I just don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's a good look, chaps. Genuinely. Like, the more that I think about it, I'm like, why? Why? What, for brand engagement? You're kind of spitting in the face of fans that have spent their money buying your merchandise, supporting, and die-hard fans, by the way. Listen, Lewis's fans go hard and they spend money not just on Lewis, on Mercedes, and they get the merch. And now this is what you're going on with, and you can't fix the bloody chaps. I don't know, time and place. But I digress. Let's talk about Fernando Alonso, chaps, because he's just signed. And again, this should be brighter, fresher pastures. But it doesn't feel that way. If I'm honest, I'll go first on this. I really wanted to see Fernando in that Red Bull car next to Max Verstappen. I'll be honest. I just wanted to see another chat. I think I'd been spoilt by Lewis moving over to Maranello and kind of wanted to see another switch, right? So happy for Fernando, happy for Aston Martin for getting a god tier driver on a multi-year contract, but a little bit disappointed for F1 that potentially will never get to see Fernando Alonso with one Max Verstappen in the same team. Baxty, to the contract signing, you respond how, sir?
Whoever thought we'd see Fernando Alonso and Honda partner back up?
Oof. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say their engines are, well, let's hope it's not a G. If we get a replay of the GP2 engine, I will cry with laughter.
Well, did you hear Lance try and replicate that in the Japanese Grand Prix? He said something similar, almost the same words.
Yeah, it was just like, we've got no straight line speed. It was just like,
It's like a
yeah,
different
but
formula.
mate, your other car's up in P6, so I'd pipe down, fella.
Well, the McLarens are up there as well. You definitely can't blame it on the engine, can you?
Yeah, it's just you're not very good, sunshine. No, I think it's good for Aston Martin because it keeps a marquee driver in their team. You know, we're talking about drivers bringing fans to the team and publicity, and you know they had that with Vettel. They've had it with Alonso, and that's going to continue, and that's great. There was a very interesting report from Amos that came out today that basically said Fernando's options were Red Bull or Aston, and that an ultimatum had been delivered. And the timing of this announcement seems very convenient in light of that article. That basically what he was saying is that Fernando wanted Red Bull, but only if Max was leaving. But Max seems at the moment leaning towards staying at Red Bull, which I fully understand. Now people will say, "Oh, that's Fernando running scared." Not so sure. Fernando's done the 2 Alpha thing. He knows how bad it can. He and Lewis are the only two really on the grid that know how bad it can truly get. So maybe he's just thinking, I really don't fancy that again. You know, going up against Max. People are speculating that he might have a get out clause in case Checo leaves. For me, I think this makes it even more that Checo's going to stay next year.
How Baxley? What gives you that impression?
Unless they sign Carlos Sainz, I don't see Red Bull signing anybody else because Daniel Ricciardo's been, you know, as good as a chocolate teapot this season. You know,
How
and
very dare you, Baxley?
I
Get
love
the
Daniel
blasphemy.
Ricciardo. I hate to say that about Daniel Ricciardo, but it's true. They're not gonna promote Yuki Tsunoda. No way are they gonna promote Yuki Tsunoda. As great as that would be, not gonna happen. So who are their options? Checo or Carlos? That's basically it because Lewis is unavailable. Lando said no. I don't think Albon fancies it. I can't imagine anyone else really good enough to go and take that drive. They're not going to promote Lawson straight up, are they? they've learnt the lesson of promoting people too early and expecting them to be one Maximilian Verstappen. It's
Oof.
that's literally it. And Carlos, I think, there was a tweet from Lawrence Barretto that came out just before we went on air, and basically it said the realistic option for Carlos right now is Williams or Sauber. Well, out of those two, you take Sauber 100 times out of 100 because of Audi coming and everything else. Like, Williams are such a crap show right now. You don't even go there unless you're trying to get into a Mercedes seat in a few years' time, a la young Mr. Antonelli. Yeah, I think with Alonso, I think it's good for the team. I think he is not the problem at Aston Martin. The problem is on the other side of the garage with Lance. And maybe he's heard something about a certain designer coming to the team.
Behave yourself, Baxter.
Potentially,
Behave.
potentially.
They can try. With Aramco's money, they can try, but I'm not sure Adrian's going anywhere just yet. The Alonso thing and Carlos Sainz, Baxter, bloody not. So Carlos Sainz, Lawrence Pareto is completely ruling out Carlos Sainz to Red Bull. Then
No, he said that
No,
it could be a possibility. He said that unless they want to pair him and Max together again, and that's the thing. Like, that relationship was okay for the time that they were together. It wasn't great, and I think now that they are a lot older than they were back in 2015, 2016, that's two alphas again in the team. Let's be honest here. Carlos isn't going to Red Bull to play number two. No way. No way.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, bro, but sometimes these things tends to shake themselves out in the wash, especially when your name is Max Verstappen and you've got that blistering pace, and already you've built up a team pretty much around you entire. Shez, talk to me about Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said there, right? That look, I said this about Lando at the time that he sort of signed with McLaren. It's not fear. It's just pragmatism, right? Like, yeah, you have to make a decision about what you want out of your career. Is it that you just want to win a few races, or is it that you want to win championships? And Fernando is very clear. He has been since 2007 that what he wants is a third championship, and he's at it at 42, still trying to get that championship, and he's constantly just trying to put himself in the position to make that happen. Um, and although Red Bull, ostensibly, if you look at it, would be the best place to go, it's not the best place to go if Max Verstappen's in the other car. It's not even about having two alphas. It's the fact that that team is just absolutely like Max and that RB20 are one that it's not even. I don't think you can even separate the two of them out from each other anymore. And if you walk into that, as good as well as Checo went in Japan, look at what he did in Australia. It's so up and down in the other car. And yes, I would bank on Fernando being an upgrade on Perez, but it's not like he's going to have an easier time. Like, it's a nailed on championship. He's going to have to work hard to make that happen politically and on the driving side. And I don't think on the driving side he ever quite has had the pace to overcome somebody like Max Verstappen. So he's going to be fighting an uphill battle as it is. Him as a lead driver in Red Bull makes much more sense for him to win a championship, which is what he's got at Aston Martin. He is, whatever the team want to say about, and by the team I mean Lawrence, want to say about Lance, that he's their second driver. And if the investment and the progress starts to manifest itself properly into 25 and 2026 at Aston, then it's a viable option. It's a potential for him to win a championship. For me, and maybe it's a bit of a tangent, Alonso's problem isn't that he chooses different, the wrong team to go to. It's often not his choice as much as he talks about destiny being in his own hands. I don't think it is. This all happened because of one moment of madness in 2007 that meant that he could no longer drive at McLaren. Every other move has been him trying to walk that back. Like, he would have still been at McLaren in 2008 and had a good shot at a title if he hadn't messed up what happened in 2007, right? if he hadn't had that reputation, then Red Bull may well have been more happy to have him come and drive for them. Do you not think that Alonso in the Vettel era would have been an upgrade? I know you do, Cameron,
What, him and Vettel
right?
together, or just
100%.
Vettel?
But Christian
Right?
didn't want him though because Seb was
Because
Red
of
Bull Junior and
sure, but if there wasn't if that
oh sorry,
wasn't
no,
there that
Christian did want him. What am I talking about?
Yeah, I was going to say Christian did
wanted
want
him.
it. It was Helmet that
didn't
said
want
no.
him.
Helmut
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
want him because of the toxicity that he was purported to bring, right? And that stemmed from what happened at McLaren again.
Go on then, Ches. I really don't want to relitigate for something that's like 15 years old. But as you look back at 2007, was what Fernando Alonso did in 2007 really as wicked as
No.
media? Go on then, explain what you mean
no,
by
that-
2007.
that's not what I'm saying. But the way that partnership split, right? I remember reading an article just at the end of 2007. If anyone can find it, it's called Tainted Love. It's by Mark Hughes, right at the end of 2007, and it talks about how Alonso felt that he'd come into McLaren. He was his hero was Senna, and like he really wanted to drive for this team, but they found this other guy that was you know much more competitive than him, and he didn't feel the love and all
True.
this stuff. And
Facts.
I agree with all of it, but he ended up then acrimoniously splitting with that team, right? And I think that put off a lot of teams towards him, and it cut off the best doors. Like Ferrari were a really good option, but they were a second best option,
But my
right?
point to you, Shez, how much of that is underlying truth, and how much of that is narrative is what I'm saying to you. Because
Yeah, but
as I revisit back Hungary as an example, which was kind of like the tipping point for that relationship between both Fernando and Lewis and Fernando and McLaren. Like, I'm looking back at that each and every single time I watch it, and I'm like, well, you know what, apart from the fact that I've got skin in the game and Lewis Hamilton's my favourite driver, fair play, Fernando. Like, I probably would have done like that pit stop thing as the start of it all. I probably would have done exactly the same as a racing driver. Would you not, Shez? Be honest.
completely agree. Completely agree. I still think that was a super smart thing to do, but to then blackmail your team principal with a bunch of
Yeah.
emails. I'm sorry, mate, but that obviously that's gonna cause
How
ructions, isn't it?
about your short fuel Lewis to make this right, Ron Dennis? Are you not going to do that? All right then. So let's have a word after the race then. If you're not going to make this right, and I'm going to get penalised for making things right on track and using my devil and you're just going to do one of these and tilt the scales back down to Lewis. Well, go on
Sure,
then.
but Cameron,
I dare you.
how did that look like? Okay, so you might look at that with 16 years of hindsight and go, yes, that was completely. There's two sides to this story, and Alonso was done dirty. I take your point, but in period, how does that look to every other team principal? Are you going to take this driver that's going to create problems?
But
Are you
herein
going to, or
lies
are you
the
going to take
question that
Sebastian
I'm
Vettel?
asking you, Shez, how much of that is underlying? Because as I watched that season, lest we forget Monaco as well, when Lewis was told to back off, didn't back off, for which there were ultimately zero downside repercussions for the man from Stevenage. This was a story ongoing that had just come to the boil in 2007. So I asked the question to you again then, Shez. How much of that is narrative, and how much of that bad reputation that Fernando Alonso has is underlying truth? Like underlying truth versus narrative? I don't know, bro. I don't know.
I'll answer that question. And then just tell you what my current situation with it, right? Is that yes, I think the narrative was pretty false, right? From what I understand, he was great at Ferrari. They loved him there. They like the Tifosi didn't really want him to leave at the end of his contract. So yes, I think there's a lot of myth built up around it. Alonso does things with his heart, and a lot of them are justified. You and I would probably do the same thing as well. Um, so yes, I think that reputation isn't necessarily justified, but in the time that he was at his absolute peak, and by that I mean absolute peak of pulling power. Like he was box office in terms of, you know, where he was seen in the pecking order. It hurt him. You can't deny that it did, that it didn't hurt him, right? It's just now when all of that stuff is mellowed and more teams, Red Bull included, are open to having him, there are other drivers that are more competitive than he is. You know,
But
Max in the
there's
same car.
yeah,
To what I mean by that is, I think he
less
has
downside.
missed his correct. I think he's missed his opportunity in the bulk of his career to be at a top team because of what happened in 2007. And now that everyone's sort of mellowed on that and they're seeing things in the same way that you are, he missed his
Fair. All
driving
right.
opportunity. Do
I
you see
see.
what I mean?
I see your point, but I'd still argue that the bulk of that is probably inaccurate perception of what happened rather
But it
than
hurt
the
him.
underlying. It did. The perception of it hurt him, and I think not unjustifiably so, but almost disproportionate to the underlying reality of what he did. Right. I don't think it was as bad as has been made out by media globally, but I digress. Baxley, chime in this very quickly, bruv, because I wanna move on to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, when you not blackmail your boss and bribe your mechanics, you know, it's never a good look for you. Like, he made mistakes. He was young. He was stupid. You know, he'd been given not assurances, but he assumed he'd be the number one. Little did he know that the goat was coming through at the same time. He wasn't to know that, was he? I mean, it happens.
Do you want to win the constructors run?
Yeah, well, they would have done had they not got a hold of those documents. Let's be honest. They would have won that constructors title easily. Yeah, I completely agree with what Shez was saying. I think from a driving perspective, I think other than 2 seasons at Ferrari, he missed his shot. I think 2012, if he'd been in any of those if he'd been in that McLaren in 2012, I'm fairly certain he would have found a way to win that champ. I know how unreliable that car was, but you know, put him in a Red Bull alongside Vettel, I think he beats him. You know, possibly 4 times out of 4, unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
I can't disagree with that.
But Helmut Marko didn't want to know, and that's Helmut Marko. You know, that's fine. You know, if that's the decision they want to take, that's absolutely fine. I get it. I fully understand it.
What could have been for Fernando?
I also, with Fernando, feel like there's a lot of, even though he's been, well, not proven, but they've never found any evidence to suggest that he was involved. I still feel like the stink of Singapore '08 follows him around as well, because he was the beneficiary of that result. Even though it had that was Briatore and PK and Pat Simmons, you know, doing something away from Alonso. I think in the back of people's minds, people still think about that.
Well, I think Baxley, it's the package deal now. It's
And the team orders in Hockenheim as well.
It's a package deal now.
And like, the GP2 engine comments and
mate,
the way he was scorched earth at McLaren in his second stint there. Just
the stench follows you owing to the length of your rap sheet, not one isolated incidents, right? If it were just McLaren or just Spygate, if it were just one, then it's much easier to make the defence for one Fernando Alonso. But sadly, it's not just one, and that's why I reckon team principal are just like, well, is the juice worth the Fernando Alonso squeeze? Potentially not. But as we round third pace, gents, let me pitch something at you that's been troubling me, that I've been racking my brains on. And we've talked about this before, but I think this is going to become a theme between now and the rest of the season. Does F1 in Max Verstappen's dominance, since over the past 48 Grand Prix, he has won 38 of them. Of the 10 that he hasn't won, 3 of them have gone to his teammate. Does F1 in April of 24 Baxley have itself a monotony problem?
yes.
Nothing long. Go on. Do you want to expand? Okay.
Yeah. No. People are going to come at me and say you're a Mercedes fan. It was boring for us when Lewis was winning all the time. Yeah, I get it. There was more competition. I've said this so many times. There was more competition when Lewis was winning. He was winning in a way of the competition. Like he was beating Ferrari, he was beating Red Bull, he was beating his teammate. There was a closer battle between the teammates. If Max had won his last two championships going hell for leather with Checo Perez, and the two of them had just taken lumps out of each other, and Max had won both, a la 2014 and 2015, we wouldn't be having this discussion because we would have had 2 years of great battles, great racing. But it's never fun seeing one bloke. I mean, I watched the first race start on Sunday, and Max was gone within 3 corners. And had the red flag not happened, he was gone. And the only chance Checo had was for that second restart, and then literally within 3 corners again. Bye bye, see you later. I was willing Checo just to try and send one down the inside.
Mate, you must be.
I get it's your team. I get it's your teammate. I get it's your teammate. You don't want to hit your teammate, but at least try. Come on, like if it doesn't come off and you end up in second place, fine. But at least you tried. Or if you hit your teammate, then that's on you. You're an idiot. But you've got to be careful with it. But it's and Checo had a good race on Sunday because there was strategic intrigue and everything else. But it's getting boring when you hear the Dutch national anthem followed by the Austrian national anthem followed all over again. I mean, it gets very boring, very repetitive. I used to love watching the podiums and watching the post-race analysis. Now it's just a case of races finished, see, bye, done. Don't want to know.
Go on then, Baxter. And this is the point that we've been making for several years now, that the broadcasting team, especially in times like now when the racing's quite monotonous, need to be part of the show as they are with other sports. Roy Keane, Micah Richards, football, Stephen A. Smith and sports debate in North America. The guys on the internationally syndicated broadcast need to give us more. Right or wrong, Shez?
Oh yeah, 100%. But I've said this for the last 2 or 3 seasons as well, that when you've got monotony at the front, and you do, like Red Bull and Verstappen fans cannot deny the fact that seeing the same team and driver win every single race, every single time, however good that performance is, and it is good, great even, the optics of it are just a bit sort of, what's going to happen when you go into a race weekend. And Japan was a case in point. Like all of the intrigue, all of it was about who was going to get third place, at the end of the race. It wasn't about, like, you already knew what was going to happen at the front. You even knew who the second place driver was going to be. They don't have any fun in that. So I agree with you. The broadcast team do need to come up with different things to make it more interesting. I think Bernie Collins is a brilliant addition to the broadcasting team. I think more insight like that would be great. I mean, I understand why personalities like Danica Patrick are there, but I would definitely, well, for the North American market, right? I would definitely trade in Danica Patrick for, say, Claire Williams. Claire Williams is suddenly around. Like, I'd much rather have her insight as a team principal and Bernie Collins as a strategist than I would Danica Patrick and insert, as you will, ex-Formula One World Championship driver. That's more interesting for me in a season where on the driving front, what's going to happen every single time.
Yeah. Oh, Shez, I don't know about them names. Baxter, who do you want to see on your broadcast to give you some sort of some additional flavour? Let's say
Johnny Herbert. They should never have fired him.
True.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think, Sky seem to have trotted out every single past British driver that they can get their hands on, other than DC. But DC is tied up with other broadcasters.
They need Nigel Mansell. Baxter, that's what they need.
Oh my God.
Nigel would be so boring. I love Nigel, but
do you think
he'd be really boring?
I know what you mean.
This is the greatest day of my life.
I think they need to get Eddie Jordan back on there. I'll be honest.
Yes, get Eddie, because he was a maverick.
Perfect.
When he basically Hockenheim, when he was like, that was theft. Like, the biggest to go back to this monotony, the biggest indictment I have of this whole monotony thing goes back 2 years. It goes back to both Hungary and Belgium in 2022 when Max started 10th and he started 16th. And the talk on the morning of both of those races was Max Verstappen's going to win both of those.
Yeah,
Not
what
even in the wildest dreams of the Mercedes dominance could you say if Lewis Hamilton started back there, he would win that race. Never. That's why Hockenheim 2018 is considered so sacred among, because he did that draw. Oh, 14th, not 16th. 14th. He starts 14th. He comes through the field. Okay, yeah, look, Vettel crashes, but that's part of motorsport. And, but how can we sit there seriously and go, hang on a sec, the guy in 14th is the favourite to win? Nah, something's not adding up here. Something is really not adding up here. And that's the biggest indictment I've ever had of the sport. Like, people say, oh, well, when Lewis started further back, there was Nico in the other car. Yeah, but that's part of the deal. You need that competition. It doesn't matter if it's in the same team. You need it there. Like, look, I get it. For Verstappen fans, it was really boring when Lewis was winning all the time, and now the shoe's on the other foot.
Yeah,
but
I
agree
don't
with
like
Cameron.
Shez very quickly. I don't like the whataboutery when we're talking about this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like, we can't just talk to something and deal with Max's dominance in and of its own merits, right? Why does there need to be this compare and contrast? To your point earlier, Baxter, about the toxicity. Why does it need to? Why are we picking holes in consistency? I could bring the videos. I was making podcasts back in 2016, 17, 18, 19 and 20. And we sacked it off because we were just like, well, this is a bit long now. Like, I feel like I know what's going to happen. What have I got to talk about?
No, I get it. And to your point about the broadcasters need to tell us the other stories. Like, what's one of the most engaging stories we've had this year? What we spent 30 minutes talking about last week, which was Williams. That's actually something we can look at and go, yeah, hang on a sec. This is a historic team that has seemingly got themselves in the shit again.
But
then you look at Andretti this week coming out and saying, "Oh, Formula One, yeah, you rejected us, but here's our 40,000 square feet factory that we're building, and we're still just going to go ahead and get ready. So when you do eventually let us in, we're good to go, and we can actually add value to the championship, even though you said we wouldn't, you bastards."
Let's go. It is huge, Baxi, but I'd see that and I'd raise you this. I still think that there's something to be said for... I still think the broadcasters that we see on a weekly basis are too white collar, too buttoned up, aren't they? And very what's the word that I'm looking? Too straight laced and stiff, and they're not going to get in there and have a debate about, do you know what I mean, about Abu Dhabi, let's say. They won't have... Kravitz will, kind of, and you can see him kind of almost having that internal argument with himself on the notebook. But why don't we have a couple of them in there that are just prepared to just... Do you know what I mean? Have it out almost like they would on the...
Look at the way Ted got crucified in Australia because he said, "Oh, somebody else has won. It's great." That's not Ted going, two fingers up at Max Verstappen. That's just Ted going, "Hey, it's nice that somebody different has won for a different franchise." And he was like that in the old in the Mercedes days.
And I think that's what, from both, not pointing the criticism at one driver, but the ability to kind of engage meaningfully in discourse and have a difference of an opinion and friction. I've just realised what we're doing. The broadcasting team currently are mirroring the monotony that we're seeing on track, right? They're giving us the exact same product and the same line of discussion every single time that I turn on. Where's the variety? And whilst there's no variety on track, courtesy of Max Verstappen's excellence, you need to give us that in terms of... You give us that in terms of the discourse and the way that you engage. Do you know what I mean? Surely.
They have varied it up. They varied it up with their new virtual studio.
Baxter, don't even get me onto that, bruv.
I will say this on
please.
that. The BBC have been doing it for years. The BBC have been doing it for years in other sports.
There is a way to do that, Baxter. And to do that, to carry that format, right, you just need a bit of vavavoom and something in person. Monday Night Football, right? I really still dislike Carra now. Like, I'm not a big Jamie Carragher fan, but he's brilliant on that show with Gary Neville because they like each other and they hate each other in the same sentence, right? And it's must-see TV. Where is that for us? Nowhere. And I think it's a sad state of affairs, but I digress, chaps. And with that, on that bombshell, Cameron doesn't like the broadcasters. Let's wrap. From my guy Shez, from my guy Baxty, I've been Cameron F1. Be sure, as always, to catch us same time, same place next week. Like, comment, subscribe if you're watching. If you are listening, follow and 5 stars, por favor. As always, between now and next time, remember to look but never stare.